Welcome to English Story Trail. In today's story, we travel across the sea to a mysterious island in search of buried treasure. Join Jim Hawkins on an exciting adventure with pirates, sailors, secret maps and hidden gold. Treasure Island is a famous adventure story by Robert Louis Stevenson. This version has been rewritten in simple A2-level English, making it easier and more enjoyable for English learners. Chapter 1: The Mysterious Stranger. Many years ago, a young man called Jim Hawkins lived with his mother and father at a small inn near the sea. The inn was called the Admiral Benbow. Jim's father owned the inn, and Jim helped his parents with the work. It was not a very exciting life. Every day, Jim cleaned rooms, carried food and helped the guests. But one cold winter day, a strange man arrived at the inn. He was tall and strong. He had a large scar on his face, and he carried a big wooden chest. He looked at Jim and said, "Boy, come here." Jim walked towards him. "What do you want, sir?" "I want a room," the man said. "And I want to stay here for a long time." "Of course, sir." The stranger put some gold coins on the table. "My name is Captain Billy Bones," he said. "You can call me Captain." "Yes, Captain." The captain looked out of the window at the sea. "Do you see that ship?" Jim looked outside. There was no ship. "Not now," said the captain. "But one day, a ship will come. When you see a man with one leg, tell me." Jim did not understand. "A man with one leg? Yes. A man with one leg. That is all." The captain stayed at the inn for many months. He spent most of his time drinking rum and looking at the sea. Sometimes he sang old sea songs. 15 Men on the Dead Man's Chest. Jim did not like the song. It was dark and frightening. The captain was also very interested in pirates. He often asked Jim questions. "Have you seen any sailors around here?" "No, Captain." "Good. Why?" The captain looked at him carefully. "Because I am looking for an old friend." "Who is he?" The captain became quiet. "His name is not important." Jim thought there was something strange about the captain. He was afraid of someone. But Jim did not know who. Then, one morning, an old sailor arrived at the inn. He had one hand and a pale face. He walked into the room and looked at Captain Bones. The captain suddenly became very quiet. The sailor sat down. "Do you remember me, Billy?" The captain stood up. "Black Dog." The two men looked at each other. Then Black Dog quickly left the inn. The captain was very angry. He drank a lot of rum that night. A few days later, another visitor arrived. This man was blind. He walked slowly with a stick. He came to Jim and asked, "Where is Captain Bones?" Jim pointed towards the captain's room. The blind man walked inside. Jim heard him say, "Billy." Then there was a loud cry. The blind man quickly left. Captain Bones was sitting on the floor. His face was white. Jim ran to him. "Captain, are you all right?" The captain looked at Jim. "They have found me." "Who?" "The pirates." Chapter 2: The Treasure Map. Captain Bones became very sick. Jim and his mother tried to help him, but he was getting weaker every day. One evening, the captain called Jim to his room. "Jim, come here." Jim walked closer. The captain took a small package from his chest. "Take this." "What is it?" "A map." Jim looked at the paper. It showed an island. There were mountains, trees and a large red cross. What is this place? Treasure Island. Jim's eyes became wide. Treasure? Yes, a great treasure. The captain looked towards the door. Many years ago, I sailed with a famous pirate called Captain Flint. Captain Flint? Yes, he was one of the most dangerous pirates on the sea. What happened to him? He died, but before he died, he hid his treasure on an island. The captain pointed at the map. This shows where the treasure is. Jim looked carefully at the map. Why don't you take it? The captain laughed. Because the other pirates want it too. Suddenly, there was a loud noise outside. The captain looked frightened. Take the map, Jim. Jim put it inside his coat. A few hours later, Captain Bones died. Jim was sad, but he knew that something terrible was coming. That night, Jim and his mother opened the captain's wooden chest. Inside they found some money and papers. But they also found the map. Then they heard voices outside. The pirates are here. Jim and his mother quickly left the inn. They went to the home of a local doctor called Dr. Livesey. Jim showed him the map. Drive Livesey looked at it carefully. This is Captain Flint's treasure map. Another man was with him. His name was Squire Trelawney. He was rich and loved adventure. Treasures, he cried. We must find this treasure. Drive Livesey looked worried. Be careful, Trelawney. Don't worry. I know a good ship. We can sail to the island. What is the name of the ship? The Hispaniola. And so the adventure began. Chapter 3, The Hispaniola. Jim traveled with Dr. Livesey and Squire Trelawney to the port. There they found the Hispaniola. It was a beautiful ship. The captain was called Captain Smollett. There were many sailors on the ship. One sailor was a friendly man called Long John Silver. He had one leg and used a wooden crutch. When Jim saw him, he remembered Captain Bones. A man with one leg, he thought. But Long John Silver did not look frightening. He smiled and said, "Welcome aboard, young Jim." "Thank you." Silver worked as the ship's cook. He was friendly, funny and intelligent. He quickly became popular with the sailors. Jim liked him too. The ship left the port. For many days they sailed across the sea. Jim enjoyed his new life. But one night, he climbed inside a large barrel to get some apples. He was eating an apple when he heard voices. It was Long John Silver. Jim stopped eating and listened. Silver was talking to another sailor. "We are close to the island now," Silver said. "Good," the other man replied. "When we find the treasure, we will take the ship. What about the captain? We will deal with him later." Jim's heart began to beat fast. He understood everything. Long John Silver was a pirate. Many of the sailors were pirates too. They were planning to steal the treasure. Jim stayed inside the barrel until the men left. Then he quickly told Dr. Livesey, Squire Trelawney and Captain Smollett. The captain was angry. "How many pirates are there?" "Perhaps half the crew," said Jim. "We must be careful." The men made a plan. They would pretend that they did not know about the pirates. They would wait until they reached the island. Then they would fight. Chapter 4, The Island. At last, the Hispaniola reached Treasure Island. The island was beautiful. There were green forests, high mountains and long beaches. But nobody was thinking about the beauty. Everyone was thinking about the treasure. Captain Smollett ordered the men to lower the boats. Jim went with a group of sailors. Long John Silver was also there. When they reached the beach, Jim jumped out of the boat. He ran into the forest. He wanted to escape from the pirates. Suddenly, he heard a voice. "Jim!" It was Long John Silver. Jim turned around. Silver was coming towards him. "Don't be afraid, Jim," he said. "You are a pirate." Silver smiled. "Yes, perhaps I am, but I don't want to hurt you." Jim ran away. Deep in the forest, he met a strange man. The man was dirty and thin. His clothes were old and torn. "Who are you?" Jim asked. "My name is Ben Gunn. Why are you here?" "I have been on this island for 3 years. 3 years, yes. I was left here by pirates. Do you know about the treasure?" Ben Gunn smiled. "I know something about the treasure." "What?" "That is a long story." Ben Gunn told Jim that he had once been a pirate. He had sailed with Captain Flint. He knew about the treasure. But he would not tell Jim everything. "Can you help us?" Jim asked. "Maybe." Ben Gunn smiled again. "I have a small boat hidden on the island." Jim was surprised. "You have a boat?" "Yes. And it may be very useful." Chapter 5: The Fight. While Jim was in the forest, Captain Smollett and his men had a problem. The pirates had started their attack. There was a small wooden fort on the island. The captain and his loyal men moved inside it. The pirates attacked. Gunshots filled the air. Bang! Bang! The fight continued for hours. Some men were hurt. But the captain and his men defended the fort. Long John Silver was clever. He did not give up. "We need the map," he shouted. But the map was safe with Dr. Livesey. Jim wanted to help his friends. He remembered Ben Gunn's boat. He decided to find it. After searching for some time, Jim found the small boat hidden near the beach. It was very small, but it could move through the water. Jim had an idea. He waited until night. Then he quietly rowed towards the Hispaniola. The ship was almost empty. Jim climbed aboard. He discovered that 2 pirates were guarding it. One of them was asleep. The other was drinking. Jim waited. Then he moved quietly across the deck. He cut the ship's rope. The Hispaniola began to move away from the island. Jim had taken control of the ship. But he soon discovered a problem. The ship was moving towards the rocks. Jim tried to turn it. He worked hard. Finally, he managed to move the ship away from danger. Then he saw something terrible. One of the pirates was awake. He was coming towards Jim. Jim was frightened. But he found courage. He ran across the ship. The pirate followed him. Jim escaped and jumped into the water. He swam to the beach. Chapter 6: The Treasure. When Jim returned to the fort, he discovered that the situation had changed. The pirates had taken control of the fort. But Long John Silver was now talking to Dr. Livesey. Jim was surprised. "Where are the others?" Silver pointed towards the forest. "They are looking for the treasure," Jim looked at him. "Why are you helping us?" Silver smiled. "I have my own reasons." They took the treasure map and went into the forest. The pirates were excited. They followed the map. "Here," shouted one of them. "The tree, the treasure is near here." They began to dig. But something was wrong. There was no treasure. The hole was empty. Only a few old coins were there. The pirates became angry. "You lied to us." Silver looked shocked. "I didn't lie." Then they heard a voice. Looking for this? It was Gunn. He was standing on a hill. Beside him was a large bag. Then Jim understood. Gunn had already found the treasure. He had moved it to a safe place. The treasure was now inside his cave. The pirates were furious. But Dr. Livesey and Captain Smollett arrived with their men. The pirates had no choice. They surrendered. Long John Silver, however, escaped. He took a small bag of gold and disappeared. Jim was disappointed. Where did he go? Drive Livesey smiled. He is a clever man. Chapter 7, Home. The treasure was loaded onto the Hispaniola. It was gold, silver and jewels. It was an enormous fortune. Jim looked at the island one last time. He thought about everything that had happened. He had met pirates. He had escaped from danger. He had sailed a ship. He had found a treasure. He had also learned something important. Adventure can be exciting, but it can also be dangerous. The Hispaniola sailed home. The journey was long, but this time there were no pirates. When they arrived, everyone was happy. The treasure was shared between the men who had helped find it. Jim returned home to his mother. He never forgot Treasure Island. Sometimes, at night, he remembered the island. He remembered the strange sounds of the forest. He remembered the pirates. And he remembered Long John Silver. Jim often wondered where Silver had gone. Perhaps he was living in another country. Perhaps he was planning another adventure. Perhaps he was searching for another treasure. Jim never knew. But he knew one thing. He would never forget the greatest adventure of his life. The end. What a great story, and very famous it is too. Many plays and films have been made or inspired by Treasure Island. I hope you enjoyed it, and please don't forget to like and subscribe too if you want to.